Hi there, and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ryan. Bye.
I'm Ted.
Dave.
And in this discussion of the DMG on page 38, or the Dungeon Master's Guide, we're going to talk about different flavors of fantasy. So, you got two chicks at the same time, BDSM, midgets perhaps. Oh, wait.
I don't think that's what they're talking about.
Oh, right. Okay, in the book, actually. It says heroic and not erotic fantasy, right? Sorcery, you got epic fantasy, mythic fantasy, dark fantasy, which that could be some of the BDSM stuff. Intrigue, mystery, swashbuckling, war, wuxia, right? That's like wire fu type of stuff.
Yeah, that's what it is. I don't know how you actually pronounce it.
And then you have crossing the streams.
Dun, dun,
you
dun.
never cross the streams. Cross the streams, Ray.
We cross the streams all the time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, all right, yeah. So, well, Ghostbusters,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. So, let's kick it off then. We'll start off with the heroic fantasy.
All right, so heroic fantasy, I think, is more of your traditional D&D, your Forgotten Realms, your Greyhawk type campaign setting, where
Or even like Lord of the Rings, I would probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, I think, is closer to epic.
I would say a little less so because there's not really that epic of magic happening, and epic for me would be like magic.
I don't know. You are destroying the One Ring and taking down Saruman.
Yeah.
No,
So
I think the difference between heroic and epic is the grandiose. Heroic fantasy, your heroes.
it's a lower level. Fantasy.
So you're on the scale of that 1 to 5, maybe 5 to 10 kind of bracket where your fame for what you're doing stays down here. The fact that Frodo and Sam destroy the ring. Frodo winds up going to the Elven lands, and Aragorn becomes king. That's epic. Those people are going to be known throughout the history books.
When you get into legendary,
So I think that is more along those lines of, or how I describe it, of what those
and I feel like in the epic, I feel like in the epic fantasy, or the heroic fantasy, I should say, is you're constantly in the shadow of those people.
Right.
So how can you be epic when you have to compare yourself to Aragorn or Drizzt or Elminster?
So you're the stories of the other guys.
Yeah, you're the other guys.
Guys.
Heroic tier fantasy is like the other guys, and it's probably a little more magic-y.
You're the janitors. Like, you're the guys that are, like, killing the dire rats and the were-rats that are in the sewers. And all the other guys do all the grandiose stuff, riding griffins around and all this crap. Like, you're in Griffin Gaff. It's got the Griffin in the name. There's no damn griffins in your, like, your micro city, because it's not even a full city, man. Like, everybody else is the glory.
You're stuck... You're stuck watching Drizzt take out the whole army by himself, and you get to go stick people and make sure they're dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you're the medic for the one cut that he let an orc get on him just to make him feel better for his
See, I got cut.
Yeah.
But
dude, you did that with the enemy's sword after he fell.
Yeah.
That being
said,
still
counts.
You can turn heroic fantasy into fantasy fairly easy, and I guess that would be crossing the streams.
No, crossing the streams is like cross genre type of stuff.
Well, I mean, you start off with heroic fantasy, and as the characters gain more level, they become epic.
Yeah, but when you're
only if the scope of the adventures are epic.
Yeah, crossing the streams, because epic is like world changing stuff. The crossing the streams is the way I look at it. Like, you're starting to bring like elements of sci-fi into things, or
westerns,
or spaghetti westerns. Yeah, exactly.
So sword and sorcery, epic fantasy.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're on the sword and sorcery, which is very much the Conan level, spellcasters are generally the bad guys, or magic is super scarce in this sort of world. Lots of barbarians and warrior types.
Dark Sun,
Dark Sun
fit into that as well.
Yeah. You can also do the sword and sandals thing, so like Sinbad, like a lot of the, I feel like, well, Clash of the Titans is mythic, but so... I don't know, so early fantasy sort of trope stuff would be the sword and sorcery, like all the pulp sort of things that were happening.
You can have a sword and sorcery game where you're discovering, other races or magic source to bring it back into the world. So if you limited it to, hey, you can play, barbarians, fighters, rogues. And it's like, all right, that's it. If you can cast spells, you can't play it.
or you're really penalized to do it, like you're persecuted, like in Dark Sun, or like, people are shouting witch, and then like they're like throwing stones at you and like maybe gonna string you up if they catch you.
But you can run a game where you like uncover like a positive magic. Maybe you freed you've destroyed whatever object is like imprisoning the gods, and now they're returning to the world and offering the boon of healing, which doesn't exist in typically arcane magic. So I mean, there's definitely loads of possibilities.
Yeah, although I mean, if all the common populace has a negative association of magic, it doesn't matter if you're like basically doing Jesus-like miracles, they're probably still going to stone you to death.
They're still going to put you on a cross.
Yeah, they're still gonna, yeah, exactly.
But wah, wah. So if it's not magic, then you could be like discovering new races. Just the characters in a one-shot group was talking about running a game, and magic, arcane magic didn't exist. Elves weren't around. It was pretty much just humans, and there was the possible talk of like you might discover an elf. So it's like, okay, well, that's pretty interesting, to have a campaign setting that you get to discover the races for the first time.
First contact sort of situation. Yeah.
So, what do you got there next? Epic.
So yeah, I mean,
we kind of touched on.
we went back and forth on that. So that brings us into Mythic. So I mean that is like very Greco-Roman legend,
It's
Theseus the Minotaur.
Essentially,
you're pitted against the gods.
I think essentially it's basically the TV show with Kevin Sorbo and
Hercules
and the Legendary Adventures.
Yeah, and the Xena show. It's essentially what it is. The gods are there, and they're more of a pain in the ass than anything, or if they're not downright, against you.
Yeah. And like with Mythic, I would definitely want to use things like if I was doing a heavily Mythic infused game, which I do have a campaign setting in mind that is going to be more Mythic. I would definitely use the what's the not Renown, but the other score that was based off of like one's Piety basically.
Piety, yeah.
Yeah, it was Piety. So like like where you like maybe that grants like inspiration per day based on your score or whatever.
But on the downside, the other gods F with you more.
Right. Yeah, they mess with you more, or other people that please them have inspiration to use against you kind of deal. So, yeah, that sort of thing. So, in a nutshell, Mythic. Just you're up against or meddled with by the gods. You're there
it's
for their amusement.
Pretty much the gods are more interactive in the world. They've got the ability to offer you, boons and incentives for, your aid and whatnot. And the gods can also
or foils and drawbacks, as the case may be.
Carrots and sticks.
And they walk amongst you, kind of thing. Yeah, it's not. They're not separated. They don't always necessarily have to act through mortal agents,
right?
Which could be a real bummer.
Yeah, that's a bummer, man. Yeah, exactly.
You walk in the tavern and holy crap, there's the god of war. He's drunk.
And looking to fight. No, I mean like even when you read like Greek myth, there's like the accounts of Achilles, like basically describing like what a terrible force in the battlefield he was. They're basically like describing like divine agents like along beside him, like helping him, and like that could be expending the inspiration, like so lesser divine beings are like dispatched to like aid you in that one moment, as you're striking people or whatever. So like it's the way you flavor it. Largely. So, like, maybe somebody makes, like, a perception check. They, like, see this, like, these swirls of, like, glowing light around you as you're doing this thing. Like,
Or you just throw it in as flavor text.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, exactly. It's part of the thing. So, now we're on to dark fantasy.
That, that pretty much makes me think of Dresden Files, to be honest with you.
Well, see, I since they don't actually have the category in here, I actually think this one's supposed to be horror.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's...
And I classify Dresden as horror.
Well, he deals with a lot of those elements, though.
And horrific things happen. It's just, there's also, like, humor in it. But it's like, you can have dark humor and dark fantasy, like, be one and the same.
Yeah. I see him as more of a modern fantasy, even though that's not an option here. But, what's a great part, about
a lot of the urban fantasy stuff, which that falls into, actually has a lot of the dark fantasy tropes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why it makes me think of Dresden Files.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, it's it is interesting that they don't mention like humor as a possible thing, because you could totally do like a Discworld sort of campaign setting. I mean, it's not the kind of game I would want to play regularly, because as rare enough as we can all get together to play. Not really my thing, but
I think a whole party of comical characters in a D&D-esque type game would be kind of annoying after a while. By the end of the first session, it might start grating on your nerves.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be a very specific... Like, the villains were going to be kind of absurd and ridiculous, and so will the characters and the plot lines. And
so, yeah, I feel like, that lends itself far better to other genres. Especially, like, the superhero genre, where you're going to go, all right, we're going to play, like, a tick-style game.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it couldn't work, but it's the question of whether this is the best rule set for it, kind of thing.
So, next we move on to Intrigue.
Intriguing.
Indeed. So it's basically this is where you're using political intrigue, espionage, sabotage, any kind of cloak and dagger type stuff.
Investigation again. So like
that screams Eberron.
Well, I mean, so when we get back to Dresden Files, like basically the crossing between dark fantasy and intrigue, like that's with that splash of humor in it. Like that's pretty defining of that whole thing being a modern dark fantasy intrigue. So so the intrigue is just like like there's things to uncover.
Yeah, like but the thing with Dresden Files is it's humor in a way like Spider-Man's humor. Yeah, like that would be like an analog for him, because a lot of the humor comes from the pop culture references and him just being a wise ass.
Yes. Right. Yeah. No, it's true. It's not non sequitur humor. Yeah. So like just ridiculous, absurd stuff. So mystery. Mystery.
I have no idea what that is.
No.
It's a mystery to you.
All right, let's skip that one because none of us have a clear enough view on it.
So there's obviously a difference between intrigue and mystery. Whereas intrigue is done as kind of the behind the curtains kind of thing. Mystery is more investigative, and you're actually trying to solve a case or a thing.
Yeah, I mean most of your detective novels are mysteries. The whodunit is mystery. The Clue game is based off of a
right.
So I touched on this a little bit in the last session I ran online, but I didn't do the full on Clue version.
Well, even too like anytime you have like ruins or whatever. You're kind of, what was the purpose? Who are the people here? Why is this thing here? It is,
but only if you're trying to solve the problem.
Right.
Like, so mystery always, like the ruins thing is exploration. It doesn't venture into mystery unless there's a problem attached to it that you're specifically trying to solve.
Right.
So that's the key factor in mystery.
Well, except for like, if you make those ruins like integral to the plot line that's ultimately going to happen, your adventurers may not care the first time they're exposed to it. But then they might think back these things these items they might have brought with them or whatever. And so the mystery is there. They just haven't...
They're not aware of it.
They haven't pulled at the threads yet. So eventually it could happen.
Yeah, well, that would be be foreshadowing into the mystery.
How mysterious.
Dun, dun, dun.
Huzzah! So now we're on the swashbuckling?
Swashbuckling. Here's where your comedy game should happen, if it's going to happen at all.
Yes, right. And swashbuckling is going to be far more
light
of that light back and forth. Swashbuckling also...
You get hit a lot because you can't wear armor.
But it also opens up to that that pseudo new technology, because here's where you could put in like muskets and pistols, because it's going to fit that kind of theme if you want
flintlock technology or whatever. But also too, if you're going to throw hero points into a game, that would be the game to have hero points, definitely. Like people doing fancy maneuvers, maybe they're burning hero points to just drop a chandelier on somebody or swing from a rope or whatever. So, and to have that be likely to succeed.
Hero points and plot points.
Indeed.
Plot points. So, that's so I mean, but this is like also too with a swashbuckling game. Well, swashbuckling and intrigue go over real well because you have those sort of like social role playing moments that very likely lead into combat or duels.
And swashbuckling always feels like it should... it doesn't have to, but it feels like it should incorporate pirates and happen on a ship. Even though, it doesn't have to. There's almost just mixed well.
Yeah, or it could be Three Musketeers. Like, Three Musketeers is very swashbuckly, too. Yeah.
Or Zorro.
Or Zorro. Definitely Zorro.
You see, you think swashbuckling, and it's like, all right, I think rapier. You know?
Or Robin Hood, Men in Tights. You could, that's if you go the comedic route, but he was definitely a swashbuckling character.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, come on, Errol Flynn, was like when most people think of Robin Hood, you think Errol Flynn.
Yeah, he's the prototypical.
Well, I guess we're getting old, so I guess like the next generation.
This generation has no idea.
Yeah, they may not be thinking that at all.
If you're under the age of 20 right now, you probably have no clue who Errol Flynn is.
but a lot of this, the thing, with these different fantasy tropes, a lot of them cross over and they're interchangeable.
Absolutely.
You can move from one kind of game to another and back again.
Yeah.
Depending on what your needs are at the time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So next we move on to war, and what is it good for?
Absolutely.
Apparently, fantasy games.
Absolutely, hobgoblins because they're leading armies. Yeah.
So here's one of those things that if you want that machinations of moving massive armies around.
Massive because they're
battles.
giant armies, like giants.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But send the giants versus the dragons. I mean, isn't that what it's all about?
No, there aren't that. According to Dave, there aren't that many dragons.
Well, Dave's
that
not
have
in
war.
charge.
Yeah. You're not the boss of D&D. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think I've ever really done a war game. Have either of you guys?
No.
It's been like the backdrop of a game.
Yeah,
but it's
but
never been like we are agents of a side of a conflict.
Yeah, you're in the military kind of deal. You're a unit.
Which again, talking about mixing the different sort of ideas, intrigue, war, and intrigue are going to go together usually for sure. So can you intercept secret messages people are sending to one another, their battle plans, or or whatever, or maybe the chancellor is actually selling out your country to the other one, and you have to uncover them, sort of thing.
Well, and politics go hand in hand with war as well.
Right, absolutely.
Whether it's opposing sides or opposing factions on the same side.
Look at Eberron. Look at Game of Thrones. Both of them have, political intrigue going on. They both have war, all over it. So,
yeah, those two molds fit precisely together. And then, so we got Wuxia. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but I don't think many of us have done that sort of like high kung fu theater-y sort of game.
I've played an Oriental Adventures style game,
which is totally not PC at all.
Yeah, it's absolutely racist.
Yeah.
Because I used to own that book. It was an amazing book, though.
Yeah.
But you're going back to the 80s as well.
Well,
though.
I mean, but even in 3rd edition, I think they printed a book that was called The Oriental Adventures, which was in like the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I don't know if they did another Oriental Adventures.
I'm pretty sure there was a 3rd edition printing of it, and it was still called Oriental Adventures, even though that is not the correct preferred nomenclature, dude.
I don't know if it was. I don't think it was actually put out by Watts.
I remember because it had like this sort of like off-white textured cover that almost looked
we'll
like
look it up.
wax paper or like rice paper. So yeah, it was a thing, definitely a thing.
Know what? The book has come.
Right. It had like an off-white. It had like a texture, like it was like almost like hand-pressed paper because they were doing lots of cool like parchment-y sort of things in the in 3rd edition. So yeah, that was like the cover, and then it had like the art on it almost looked like wood panel painting, like that you'd see on Asian stuff.
The only thing I'd say about that is nerdarchy to the Google Mobile.
Yeah, right. But anyway, so if you want like high-flying adventure, like
Kung Fu theater shit, man.
Yeah, like that's the thing to do.
Something else that people who aren't of our or that are younger than us probably will not know what it is.
Yeah, dude, it would come on like after Saturday morning cartoons, which no longer exist anymore.
Go look up Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or
Hero.
Is it Iron Monkey or something along those lines?
F that, old Bruce Lee movies, because like if you want the full effect, like and feel for it, like like Bruce Lee stuff was.
It was good, but that didn't. That wasn't wire food. That was grounded a little more in reality.
Yeah, the stuff where people like
Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger, Hero.
But it doesn't have like nearly the level of cheesiness that like old classic kung fu.
Oh no,
stuff.
Crouching Tiger,
littered with it.
And Hidden Dragon had great. Dude, they were fighting on top of the trees.
Yeah.
Still, I remember. Still, yeah.
I'm only fighting on top of trees.
They're like that's like an artistic decision. There was like a thing where this guy in this kung fu theater movie. he had this like ball thing that he would throw around, right? Or this weapon that like it would like flip out and blades were on it. It was like the thing that would like in Kill Bill, but that was
in that case the Bruce Lee example is horrible. It's the worst one you could have possibly given, because those movies don't even come close to what you're talking about. Well, you're the old South Kung Fu theater, yeah, absolutely. They put together the team of the guy that's blind, the guy that had his hands cut off, the guy that had his legs cut off, and they give him metal ones. You know?
Yeah, it's like fantastically like absurd. Like I loved it. It was great.
A lot of that in Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger, and Hero, and a lot of they're done in that. They're done like those movies with bigger budgets.
Yeah.
Another good one was and you need the gore. The gore is essential.
That's the thing. Like. These movies, like the Kung Fu theater stuff that we're talking about, like it was like B movie.
Oh yeah, they're horrible.
Yeah, it was great.
The dude from Wu-Tang Clan, he recently did one, Man of the Iron Fist, or something along that.
I would totally want to check that out.
Oh yeah,
was it Method Man that did it, or
I don't
Red
know.
Man? Or?
I'm not sure which one, man, but it was craptastic done in that vein and done well. Yeah. It was good.
Those guys are all really into that stuff. Like, like there's no joke about their love for that. Like,
yeah, dude. When I say craptastic, I mean it in the highest regards.
Yeah,
like it was definitely a good movie, and I think another one, and I hope so because I definitely watch more.
Yeah,
but it's like everything is just over the top.
Yeah,
and that's like the important part about that trope.
So if you're gonna run a wuxia, however you pronounce it, game. Acrobatics and athletics, you've got to seriously dial down your DCs.
And maybe let them get more bang for the buck to do stuff.
Absolutely. So it's like, I want to run up the wall. Okay, well, that's DC 10. Sure.
Yeah, make your rogues and monks, like, they could just be monks, but they could also be ninjas.
Right.
Your what is it? Your paladins could be samurai, all
that
kind of stuff. Yeah. So all that
and there should be fountains of blood everywhere in the battles. Like more blood is spilling out of someone than they could possibly have.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I did 7 points of damage. All right, make a dex check to see if you are covered in blood. But I only did 7 points of damage. It doesn't matter. A geyser shoots towards you.
And by dragging, you mean a guy that's basically fighting in a loincloth. And that's it.
Well, and dragons too. Like you could do like just reskin them to be like the long, thin dragons. You
could definitely give them more of the Asian feel and connotations to them,
or the Oriental look.
And you can put your hate comments towards Ryan down in the comments
down below. Yeah. So you have all that. There's like a list of reskinned weapons that's just like, hey, you could make like the mace, Kanado. There was one that they actually did the nunchucks. Make the flail actually be nunchucks doing the same damage. Just call it something else.
Yeah, your great club is a tetsubo. Your sword is a katana. I mean, that's all.
Yeah. Although I mean. Well, actually, to games for the katana is such an amazing weapon that it should do a D12. No, 2d12. It should double your proficiency bonus because katanas are so like fucking awesome. I mean, honestly, you cannot beat a katana. Yeah, like people are like so ridiculous about their love of katanas. Yeah. Like I can't understand the cult.
You could actually spend hours though on YouTube with the Western martial artists totally dissing the katana as an inferior weapon.
The cult of the katana, man. It was just
katanas look pretty, but it takes someone who is really skilled at sword work to be able to fight with them against another swordsman because.
Can't you like with a big heavy sword? Can't you just shatter the blade?
No. Katanas were really well put together, but they're not as designed as say the German longsword to be able to go sword versus sword.
And it's definitely not the samurai's weapon.
Yeah,
his bow is.
Right.
When I think they did Samurai versus Viking on what was that show? Deadliest Warrior.
Awesome show.
And the Viking loses, but he loses not
at
because
range.
As the sword is because the bow
is
what takes him out. He didn't have anything that hit the
hand axes or whatever.
No, they used longbows, but it's inferior to the great bow of the samurai.
And the level of marksmanship probably too, like because like you know like samurai were professional soldiers, like that's all they did. Vikings were like raiders that went on a raid, but then they did the other stuff throughout the course of the year probably. Right. You know, so.
Well, no, I think the Norse, the Vikings, they had their equivalent. You know that's all they pretty much did. And Deadliest Word is pretty good about matching them off.
No, actually, I mean, Thulian perspective would probably be the go-to. So if you're out there and commenting on this, you know, but like, because a Viking was a verb, like going on these raids. It was you did shit the rest of the year round, and then you went and pillaged like as another part of something you did.
Yeah, but there was warrior caste, like the Berserker, which was actually a thing.
Yeah.
That would take it to like the next level. They were the professional soldier. So,
all right, Thulian, we're looking at you on this one. You can set us straight. Yeah.
So I guess with that, I mean, we've covered them all other than crossing the streams.
Right.
Which is
you never cross streams.
Throw two together, you know,
or put them all in a blender.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of it is to like bringing in the sci-fi stuff or bringing in the Western or whatever.
I will warn you, if you're going to cross the streams, as Egon tells you never to do, make sure your concept works. Like dark fantasy wuxia, you gotta find something that's really gonna.
Hey man,
I think
you could totally because wuxia, like it could be that like the new noble in town is a vampire and like you know his whole court. So you're like doing kung fu action versus vampire type of stuff.
Come on, I bet when we get to the Jade Court in Dresden Files, you're gonna see some wuxia going on there.
Well, we gotta see how that's gonna happen. But like I said, as long as you do your homework and put together, you know, a solid build and a good story.
I actually think Eberron mixes them all. So
yeah. Well, wuxia doesn't really.
No. So. But they do a lot of tropes in Eberron very effectively combined. So it's doable.
You're like the Katana fanboy for Eberron.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That and Mountain Dwarfs.
Yeah, Mountain Dwarfs. You can't go wrong with the Mountain Dwarfs.
So Mountain Dwarf and Eberron is pretty much your pinnacle.
It's pretty close. Although when you get into Eberron, you have things like Shifter and Warforged and Changeling that are really cool too. So it's tough. A Changeling can actually turn into a Mountain Dwarf.
You can look like the superior, the pinnacle. All right, so I think we've explored too many different types of games, types of fantasy. We're good. Set. Yeah. All right. Well, so you can like, comment, subscribe, hate mail down below, setting us straight on historical facts. You can extol the virtues of the katana. Yeah.
Hang out with us over on nerdarchy.com.
Or you can follow us on Twitter.
Until next time,
stay nerdy.